Good morning and welcome you all to Blissful Literati. Today we are going to talk about dragons. Yes, majestic beasts full of fire and energy, power, in some cultures considered as gods, like in the Chinese culture. But the dragon that we are going to discuss today, as you can see from the name itself, is kind of indicative that he is not definitely not a god, but whether he's a heroic dragon or custard, custard pie, anybody? So heroic or not so heroic, that we will see today in our discussion. So here we begin the tale of Custard the Dragon by Ogden Nash. And before we jump straight into the poem and unravel this tale, learn about the narrative, the happenings, events, let us first talk about Ogden Nash, the poet himself. You see, Nash was born on 19th August 1902 in New York, and he died on 19th May 1971 at Baltimore, Maryland. His notable works include Hard Lines, The Bad Parents' Garden of Verse, I Am a Stranger Here Myself, Everyone But Thee and Me. Let us now talk about the themes of this poem, the themes we are going to analyze. First of all, I must tell you, and this might be a spoiler alert, that the tale of Custard the Dragon, it sounds so much like a ballad, right? We will discuss what ballads are, but right now suffice it to say that they are songs of heroism, heroic deeds. But this poem, it is a parody of a ballad. However, in this parody, there is also a notion of self awakening, or maybe you can say the absence of self awakening. And finally, there is this appearances are often deceptive. This theme too is discussed in this particular poem. Now, before we begin, let us make one more stop to have a look at the dragon. You see, this dragon. But indeed, looks are deceptive. One toothless can take on a completely different avatar on hearing the sound of Dracarys. Uh, Game of Thrones, anybody? Yeah. So that is appearance. Do not judge a book by its cover. Do not judge a dragon by its appearance. But why should we read this poem? Why should we devote so much of our time for this thing? You see, when I was in college, one of our professors told us that poetry that is really great, can never be understood wholly. Um, Basically, whenever you read such a poem, your mood, surrounding, simply your way of reading it can lend it different meanings, multitudes of meanings. Unfortunately, when we come across this poem, this tale of Custard the Dragon, we find no such thing. It is a basic poem of one weird family comprising a girl and her pets, for precisely a rat, a cat, a dog, and a dragon, even though they would form a great food cycle, right? This family works, and what we have here is a humorous account of their life and a particular incident involving, wait a moment, a pirate. But what is the moral of the story? Why should we bother ourselves if it is apparently not a really or truly a great poem? The truth is that not every work of art must bear a tag of exceptional greatness. Sometimes the greatness lies in its simplicity, in its ability to tell a nice story to cheer us up and to bring a little humor in an otherwise serious world. Ogden Nash's greatness lies in his ability to do precisely just this, in his quite inimitable style, where he cares not for the convention or laws of poetry, but only the humor, the effect of it. And this poem bears testimony to his talent. Let us now talk about the summary of this poem. So, as you all know by now, there was a little girl called Belinda. She lived in a small white house with four pets: a rat, a cat, a dog, and a little dragon. Her property also included a small red wagon. They would spend their days in mirth and merriment. However, the dragon was seldom able to take part in all that joy, as he longed for a nice, safe cage and was perhaps, bullied, though harmlessly, for his cowardice. Once came a pirate, and all were afraid to look at his sword and gun and the wooden of a leg. The dragon, however, wasn't to be bullied with such sights, and he promptly gobbled up the pirate. After that moment of bravery is past, things returned to normal, and the dragon was back to his coward self, where he kept crying for a nice, safe cage. So, this is apparently the summary of the poem, but we will go deeper into it and we will discuss what is actually happening. What are the different implications? So, we will begin our journey from now, and at the very beginning, we will discuss the tone and the setting of this poem. You see, the poem is written in the form of ballad, which is typically used to tell a tragic narrative which is also heroic at the same time, or rather I should say it tells a heroic narrative which can be tragic at times. Ballads were meant to be sung around fireside, recounting past heroic deeds, battles, or feuds. However, Ogden Nash turns that purpose on its head here when he parodies this popular genre by telling the story of a dragon, a heroic creature of the legendary nature, with only one problem. The dragon was a real coward, whining for the safety of a cage. This makes the tone humorous, infused with words invented by the poet. This poem is set in some distant land in a small white house where Belinda lives with all her pets and her red wagon. It is the same house where the pirate lands up, only to get gobbled up by the dragon. Let us now look at the character elements present in this particular poem. Of course, we have Belinda, the owner of the house, Ink, the black kitten, Blink, the grey mouse, Mustard, the yellow dog, and Custard, the coward dragon. All these four are her pets. Apart from these pets and their owner, there is also a pirate, and, well, who can forget, a little red wagon. Now let us read the poem first. It is a ballad, a long poem, so we will divide it into two sections and discuss accordingly. So the first section, the tale of Custard the dragon. Belinda lived in a little white house with a little black kitten and a little grey mouse, and a little yellow dog, and a little red wagon, and a really, truly little pet dragon. Now the name of the little pet black kitten was Ink, and the little grey mouse she called her Blink, and the little yellow dog was sharp as mustard, but the dragon was a coward, and she called him Custard. Custard the dragon had big sharp teeth, and spikes on top of him and scales underneath, mouth like a fireplace, chimney for a nose, and really, truly daggers on his toes. Belinda was as brave as a barrel full of bears, and Ink and Blink chased lions down the stairs. Mustard was as brave as a tiger in a rage, but Custard tried for a nice, safe cage. Belinda tickled him. She tickled him unmerciful. Ink, Blink, and Mustard, they rudely called him Percival. They all sat laughing in the little red wagon at the really, truly cowardly dragon. Belinda giggled till she shook the house, and Blink said "Wick," which is giggling for a mouse. Ink and Mustard rudely asked his age, when Custard cried for a nice safe cage. Suddenly they heard a nasty sound, and Mustard growled, and they all looked around. "Meouch!" cried Ink, and "Ooh!" cried Belinda, for there was a pirate climbing in the window. Pistol in his left hand, pistol in his right, and he held in his teeth a cutlass bright. His beard was black, one leg was wood. It was clear that the pirate meant no good. So, what is happening here up to this point? You see, let us first talk about ballads. Ballads are popular narratives of past events set to music. So when you read this poem, you will find a bit of musical element. You can easily sing along, right? Along a fireside set to a beat marked by the hard consonants in the middle of the lines. The events in a ballad usually are dramatic in nature and they gradually unfold with the progression of the ballads reaching to a crescendo where they ring out the emotions of the audience. However, Ogden Nash had no such purpose when he penned this parody of the ballad form. The humor that marks all his work is apparent in the title itself. After all, who would, in their right mind, name their dragon, albeit a pet one, Custard? Something sweet baked in a crust, which I am suggesting would be the rough scales of the dragon. Well, the dragon had all the parts that would make him a really vicious creature, an angel of crash and burn, complete with talons and spikes and a fiery breath. Yet he appears to be really scared of the outside world and longs for the safety of a cage, which should be in the White House where Belinda lived, along with the mouse, kitten, dog, and obviously this Custard the dragon. But while we're talking about names, why not assess the names of the other creatures that Belinda owned? In fact, the name Belinda is reminiscent, reminds us of Alexander Pope's mock epic poem, The Rape of the Lock, where Belinda is the hypocritical heroine whose lock of hair gets cut by this man. The Belinda in this poem, The Tale of Custard the Dragon, may not be that hypocritical, but certainly she is not who she appears to be, at least not really as brave as a barrel full of bears. The little black fur ball of a kitten is equated with black ink and is rightly named ink, while the furtive blink and miss movements of a mouse is perfectly captured in the name Blink, which she had reserved for the mouse. The yellow color of the dog is equated, on the other hand, with mustard. Now, while all these animals would be perfectly happy to eat each other in a perfectly happy world, with cat its mouse, dog its cat, and dragon its dog, and Queen Daenerys Targaryen rides dragon. Or wait, was her name Belinda? Yeah, my mistake. Belinda rides the dragon. However, this is Nashville. I mean, the world created by Nash, first name Ogden, and here they all successfully cohabit with the dragon being the cowardest of all. What? You say there is no such word as cowardist? Why? Only Nash can invent words? Can I not? Yeah, so I invented this word cowardist. Cowardist dragon, cowardest of all. So what happens? They all kind of bully this dragon, tickle him, poke and probe him, asked about his age, and well, you know, who knew dragons and girls are same in this respect? You should not ask their age. It is not polite, and anyway, Custard did not feel safe at all to be out and about in the vicious world. It is as if he was completely ignorant of his powers and the terror he would cause outside this Nashville. Again, the world created by, yes, Ogden Nash, into a regular world or even in the seven kingdoms of George Martin. But soon everything was about to change as a pirate somehow comes into this world. We will soon see how this change took place or how it affected the characters in the narrative. But before that, let's have a glimpse at the few word meanings from this section of the poem. So the first word we have is realio trulio. Yet another invention of Ogden Nash. This actually is a patented expression for real true, patented by Nash. Blink is to glance or peep, in this case reflecting the blink and miss movement of a mouse. Mustard means a pungent yellow condiment, spice reflecting the yellow color of the dog. Custard is a meat or fruit preparation baked in a crust, reflecting the sweet nature of the dragon. Or was it really sweet? Let's see. Underneath means directly beneath. Daggers are sharp pointed knives for stabbing. Barrel full of bears is an expression for a person, usually female, without fear or trepidation. Trepidation also means fear. Percival, on the other hand, is one of the knights of King Arthur. You must remember the 12 knights, the round table of King Arthur. Percival was renowned for his quest for the Holy Grail, and he was so pure of heart that he later becomes the keeper of the Grail. Kind of reminds us of Custard the dragon. He may not be so courageous all the time, but he was indeed innocent and pure of heart. He never realized the harm he may cause the way he could hurt these fragile human and the other animals, right? So he was a kind of, there was a purity, pureness in his heart. Winda is actually again an invention of Nash to rhyme window with Belinda. Winda is an abbreviated form, you may say, of window. Cutlass means a short carving sword formerly used by sailors or warships. So now we come to the next part of the poem and we see that Belinda paled and she cried, "Help! Help!" But Mustard fled with a terrified yelp. Ink trickled down to the bottom of the household, and little Mouse Blink was strategically mouseholed. But up jumped Custard, snorting like an engine, clashed his tail like irons in a dungeon. With a clatter and a clank and a jangling squirm, he went at the pirate like a robin at a worm. The pirate gaped at Belinda's dragon and gulped some grog from his pocket flagon. He fired 2 bullets, but they didn't hit, and Custard gobbled him every bit. Belinda embraced him, Mustard licked him. No one mourned for his pirate victim. Ink and Blink in glee did chariot around the dragon that ate the pirate. But presently up spoke little dog Mustard. I would have been twice as brave if I hadn't been flustered. And up spoke Ink and up spoke Blink. We would have been 3 times as brave, we think. And Custard said, I quite agree that everybody is braver than me. Belinda still lives in a little white house with a little black kitten and a little grey mouse, and a little yellow dog and a little red wagon, and a really truly little pet dragon. Belinda is as brave as a barrel full of bears, and Ink and Blink chase lions down the stairs. Mustard is as brave as a tiger in a rage, but Custard keeps crying for a nice, safe cage. So, thus we come to the end of this poem, and let's see what happened here. The pirate that jumped Belinda and her gang, out of the blue, looked every bit the part of it. A gun toting, sword biting, wooden pegged freak show straight out of Black Pearl. Maybe. Black Pearl being the legendary ship in Pirates of the Caribbean. But of course, you knew that. So, moving on with the analysis. The Bravehearts, I mean, Ink, Blink, and Mustard, and to some extent Belinda also, after all, she is as brave as a barrel full of bears, right? So the Bravehearts got some cold feet, and as they fled to their individual corners or holes, literally in the case of the mouse, who mouse hold, the one creature to turn out to be Belinda's knight in shining, scaly armor is Custard the dragon. He flared up and terrorized the pirate, whom he gobbled up with apparent relish. And what happened? He ate and drank bones and blood, and all that remained was a burp. The guys returned to celebrate the victory and danced around the dragon. But when all was said and done, Mustard, Ink, and Blink swore that they would have been even braver than Custard, right? To protect the dignity and honor of their mistress. What happened then? Custard actually readily agreed that they would have saved their mistress Belinda should the situation demanded for it. In fact, basically, he was back to his fold where he really believed that a cage can and will keep him safe from the world and not the other way around. So, basically speaking, when the moment called for it, Custard emerged as the hero. But instead of holding on to that realization, the realization that he is a powerful dragon, the alpha, the omni, oh, okay, the omega of all this animal kingdom, he went back to his shell, the custard, the crusty pie, right, of his cowardice, and he continued to live in self denial, but among friends who were precisely friendly with him because they had nothing to fear about him. Kinda make us wonder whether all this groveling self abnegation was some sort of plan on the part of Custard to gain some friends or not. You see, Paulo Coelho has a wonderful book titled The Winner Stands Alone. Now, to be a winner, you need to show some kind of psychology, some kind of particular mentality, mindset. You have to be set apart. You will not be backed down by anything or anyone. Now, Custard, the dragon, could have done that, right? After all, he was a dragon. He had got scales, he had got spikes, talons, and fire. Everything. He is the complete package. But think for a moment. In this household that we find, the little white house, the other creatures being Belinda, a human being, and three animals, which are a mouse, a cat or a kitten, and a dog, all small, all little. Only the dragon was huge. Now he had every opportunity to present himself as the creature, as the ferocious creature that he is, but he didn't. The reason we can also say that even though Custard knew about his power, he never employed it. He never resorted to it because he knew that if he were to become the ferocious dragon that he was always meant to be, he will have no friends. There was no one equal to him in that surrounding, in that setting. So it was better to be the cowardice, to tone down, to be self-abnegating, self-denying, right? But this process helped him gain friends, gain the love and care and affection. Maybe he was bullied, but that was harmless, and it was a kind of bullying that we do to our friends. We do that because we have our rights as friends. It is not something harmful, something that will make them shocked or traumatized. So he was among friends, and perhaps this was the whole plan, to be self-abnegating, to try to forget about his powers and capacities, only to gain friends, to be among friends. We will, though we will never know that, but let's move forward to the word meanings of this part. Paled. It means deficient in color or intensity, perhaps from drainage of blood due to fear. Terrified yelp is a sharp, shrill bark, squeal out of fear. Trickled is to issue or fall in drops. It relates to the quiet receding of the frightened kitten. The kitten slowly, silently, went back. So, like ink trickling away. Mousehold, a verb formed from the noun mousehole to indicate the hiding of the mouse in its hole. The mouse went into its hole, mousehold. Snorting is to force air violently through the nose with a rough, harsh sound. Kind of when you have caught a cold and you want to clear your nose, so you just blow air hard out of it. That is snorting. Dungeon means a dark underground prison or vault. I can see there is a spelling error. Please note the error. That is DARK. My mistake. Jangling squirm is to twist like a worm in a rather noisy way. Gaped is to open the mouth wide, often in surprise. Grog is an alcoholic liquor. You see, he was a pirate, and if you remember Jack Sparrow, alcohol is an integral part of a pirate's life, and therefore, flagon, a large, bulging, short necked bottle for wine. Obviously, if you want wine, you need some place to keep it, right? To store it. And there comes flagon. Gobbled means to eat or swallow greedily. Gyrate is to revolve around a point. In this case, they were all dancing, circling the dragon. They were gyrating around the dragon. And finally, we have flustered, which means in a state of agitated confusion. The dog claims, that is, Mustard claims, that he was shocked, he was confused by the sudden appearance, and that is why he ran away. It is not like that he ran away because he was afraid. It was the confusion that made him run away and assess the situation, get the confusion in order, and then come back. But we know, right, what is true? Yeah. So moving on to the figures of speech. First of all, let's talk about the rhyme. The poem is arranged in four lines stanzas, each with a rhyme scheme of AABB, where the first line rhymes with the second and the third rhymes with the fourth. But remember, there is the 13th stanza which comes with six lines. But again, the rhyme scheme remains the same. In that case, the fifth line rhymes with the sixth. Let us have an example. Belinda lived in a little white house with a little black kitten and a little grey mouse, and a little yellow dog and a little red wagon and a really, truly little pet dragon. You can see that house, if we give the code A, rhymes with mouse. So AA, and wagon, though not rhymes with mouse, so we give it the code B, rhymes with dragon. So AABB. Also, we have internal rhyme. Internal rhyme is basically a word in the middle of a sentence which rhymes with another at the end or at the middle of the next sentence. For example, take a look at this line. Mustard was as brave as a tiger in a rage. So, brave rhymes with rage. And Mustard growled, and they all looked around. Growled rhymes with around. So internal rhyme. One word in the middle of a sentence rhyming with another at the end. Next we have poetic license. The poet takes liberty to invent some structures to suit his various purpose, like realio trulio. Window becomes winda to rhyme with Belinda. Then we have alliteration and consonants. I am sure you know this, right? Yes. Alliteration is when same consonant sound is repeated at the beginning of each and every word, or rather, words in close succession. And consonance is when the same consonant sounds are repeated in words placed in close proximity, but not necessarily at the beginning. The repetition can occur at any place, anywhere in these words. For example, you can say that this whole poem is filled with alliteration and consonance. And you see, this is necessary because the target of a ballad is to be sung, to be put to music. So to get that beat, musical beat, the rhythm of a song, the poet, the lyricist, if we can call Nash here that, the lyricist, he needs to alliterate or use the device of consonants to create this beat. So the poem is full of it. We will just look at some examples, but you can find more if you take a look at the poem. So for example, we have the L and the L and T sound in the first stanza. For example, Belinda lived in a little white house with a little black kitten and a little grey mouse. So you see the L and T sound simultaneously being repeated. Little yellow dog and a little red wagon and a real yo, true yo, little pet dragon. So it is repeated. The burr sound in Belinda was as brave as a barrel full of bears. So again, burr, 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 burr. Ker sound in Custard cried, G sound in gulped some grog, and there are many more. You can find many on your own, and why not let this be your quest? You be Jack Sparrow and go out on this hunt for this treasure of figures of speech hidden in various places inside this poem. Here we will provide you with just a map, a sample, if you may. So the next sample we will have is of anaphora. Repetition of the same word at the beginning of verse lines. For example, and. The word and is repeated in the first and second stanza. Right? Then we have the next figure in repetition. You see, alliteration, consonants, they are all based on the same figure, on this same, this is the mother figure of all this category. Repetition. Alliteration, repetition of consonant sounds at the beginning of the words. Consonants, repetition of consonant sounds anywhere in the words. Assonance, we have another figure which is a repetition of vowel sounds in words placed in close proximity, and we have repetition itself. What is its purpose? Its purpose is to emphasize. You see, the word little is repeated often to emphasize on their size, while the whole first and fourth stanza is repeated at the end to bring the poem to a circle and thus close it with perfection like a song. Right? When we are singing a song, we repeat the first verse lines, the first stanza at the end of each part, and we close it, we end it by going back to the beginning, repeating it. So he is doing just that. Then we have allusion. Belinda is an allusion to Pope's poetry. We discussed this, but let us talk about this from the beginning, right? It is Belinda alludes to Alexander Pope's hypocritical heroine Belinda in his mock epic, The Rape of the Lock, while Percival alludes to one of the 12 knights of Arthur. If you have forgotten about him, do go back to the word notes and see what I discussed about Percival and how the dragon is really a kind of Percival. Then we have metaphor, an implicit comparison where some element of the comparison is left for the reader to comprehend. Not everything is, given out, right? Something is hidden. For example, you can say mouth like a fireplace, chimney for a nose, daggers on his toes. These are the expressions where we are faced with a comparison, true, but the reader needs to comprehend that in the first two instances, the poet is talking about the fire breath of a dragon. That is why the fireplace, the chimney, with smoke coming out, with fire burning, and in the last, he is actually referring to the nails, or rather talons, which he compares to the daggers. Then we have simile. If metaphor is an implicit comparison with something for the reader to comprehend, simile is an explicit comparison where nothing is left for the reader to comprehend at all. So both of these figures are based on comparison. Sometimes you need to assess something about the comparison, and sometimes the comparison lies right in front of you, everything given out. For example, Belinda was as brave as a barrel full of bears. So Belinda is compared to a barrel full of bears, and the point of comparison is her bravery. But up jumped Custard, snorting like an engine. Again, Custard is compared to an engine, and the point of comparison being the way he snorted, right? Clashed his tail like irons in a dungeon. Again, Custard's tail is being compared to irons in a dungeon, and the point of comparison being the way it is clashed. You know, these jail keepers, the people, dungeon. In fact, this reminds me of a game, Dungeons and Dragons. Right? There is a board game. Anyway, the keepers of this jail, the way they clash the iron chain in a dungeon to terrify the prisoners, our dragon, Custard too, clashed his tail to strike terror in the heart of the pirate. He went at the pirate like a robin at a worm. Nothing can be clearer. The dragon is compared to a robin, and the pirate is compared to a worm, and the point of comparison being the way he chased the pirate. Next, we have hyperbole. Hyperbole or exaggeration. It is a way to exaggerate, right? To blow things out of the proportion. As in, Belinda giggled till she shook the house. It is really, honestly speaking, you cannot, never at all, you can shake your house. Not with your laughter, at least. But Belinda giggled till she shook the house. It means she laughed really loudly, right? So it was also to indicate how loud she was when she was laughing, she was giggling. This exaggeration, this blowing things out of the proportion element is used, that she giggled so much, so loudly, that the whole house appeared to be shaking. And then we have inversion. The natural sequence of the sentence is reversed as but up jumped Custard, right? It should have been but Custard jumped up, but instead we have but up jumped Custard. The sentence sequence, the subject verb arrangement is reversed. You can say inversion is also a kind of poetic license, and as I said at the very beginning, Nash didn't care much about rules and regulations. His aim was very simple, to generate humor, to capture the attention of his audience, and that he could do really well. Finally, we will discuss about one last figure, which is onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia, it figures, right? Because the sound itself is the meaning. And sorry for the pun. Anyway, for example, clatter and a clank, jangle, even jangling, squirm, so jangle. These are all onomatopoeic words. The sound itself is the meaning. And as I said, all these figures, they are only a sample. When you read the poem and you keep these figures and their explanation in your mind, I'm sure you will be able to find several more, right? So let us move on to the final bit of our discussion, the title of this poem. You see, a ballad, any ballad, tells a narrative centered around a hero and his heroic deeds, sometimes of a tragic nature. In this particular poem, that hero is Custard the dragon. The narrative revolves around the dragon who was apparently a coward, rescued the damsel in distress, and saved his friends from a mighty pirate. The story itself is humorous, right? Thus setting it far away from the actual ballad genre, and that is perfect as Nash was penning a parody of the ballad form. However, since the structure follows all the conventions of a classic ballad, the mention of the narrative in the title and also the name of the hero of the story is perfect and apt. What do you think? We have come to the end of this discussion. So right now I'm going to ask, what do you think of this poem? Is there any secret hidden message in it? Like one that we discussed, self abnegation, self denial, to gain friends, right? uh, Only when we can forget about ourselves are we able to see the world at large. So maybe Custard was practicing that Vedantic tradition, right? But again, we would love to hear about your opinion, your thoughts on this poem, and obviously whether or not you could find out some other jewels and gems of figures of speech in this poem. Do tell us in the comment section, and if you have any question, any doubt regarding this poem, tell us, ask us, and if we're able to answer, we will definitely get back to you. But till then, bye bye.